There's something I want to talk about today that might feel uncomfortable at first, because it challenges a habit most of us have built over years without even realizing it. And that habit is this quiet, constant obsession with other people, what they're doing, how fast they're moving, how successful they seem, how far ahead they look. We scroll, we compare, we measure, and somewhere along the way, we start to believe that our value is tied to how we stack up against someone else's highlight reel. And I want to begin by asking you a simple question, one that doesn't need to be answered out loud, just answered honestly within yourself. How much of your energy is spent watching others instead of building yourself? Because here's the truth most people don't say clearly enough. The moment you start focusing on others more than yourself is the moment you begin to lose control of your own life. You see, focus is not just attention. Focus is direction, it's energy, it's identity. Whatever you focus on grows, not because the world changes, but because your perception sharpens around it. So if your focus is on others, then your growth becomes dependent on their actions. Your mood becomes dependent on their success. Your confidence becomes dependent on their failures. And now, without even noticing it, you've handed over the control of your life to people who aren't even thinking about you. That's the trap. We live in a world where comparison has been normalized. It's subtle. It's everywhere. You open your phone, and within seconds you're looking at someone who seems happier, richer, more successful, more disciplined, more everything. And even if you don't say it out loud, there's a quiet voice that whispers, "Why not me?" And that voice, if left unchecked, starts to erode your confidence piece by piece. But what if I told you that the problem isn't them, it's where your focus is? Because when you focus on others, you're not just observing, you're absorbing. You absorb their pace, their priorities, their expectations. And before you know it, you're chasing a life that was never designed for you in the first place. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to keep up with someone else's timeline. It's exhausting trying to match someone else's success. It's exhausting trying to prove something to people who aren't even paying attention. And yet, so many people spend years doing exactly that. Why? Because focusing on others is easier than focusing on yourself. Focusing on yourself requires accountability. It requires honesty. It requires sitting with your weaknesses and saying, "This is on me." It requires discipline when no one is watching. It requires patience when results are slow. It requires belief when there's no evidence yet. That's hard. But that's also where growth lives. You see, when you shift your focus inward, something powerful begins to happen. You stop reacting to the world, and you start creating your own path within it. You stop measuring your progress against others, and you start measuring it against who you were yesterday. And that's the only comparison that truly matters. Because the goal is not to be better than someone else. The goal is to be better than the version of you that almost gave up, the version of you that doubted yourself, the version of you that settled for less than you were capable of. And let me tell you something, when you fully commit to that kind of focus, everything changes. Your confidence changes because it's no longer fragile. It's no longer built on external validation. It's built on internal consistency. It's built on the promises you keep to yourself. It's built on the work you do when nobody is watching. Your mindset changes because you stop seeing other people as competition and start seeing them as proof of what's possible. Their success no longer threatens you, it inspires you. It shows you that growth is real, that progress is achievable, that discipline pays off. And most importantly, your life changes because your energy is finally going in the right direction. You see, energy is limited. You don't have an unlimited supply of focus, attention, and emotional capacity. So every time you spend it on judging others, envying others, comparing yourself to others, you are taking it away from the one place it could actually make a difference, your own life. Think about that. What could happen if you took all that energy and redirected it inward? What if instead of checking what others are doing, you checked your own habits? Instead of analyzing someone else's success, you analyzed your own discipline. Instead of questioning why they're ahead, you asked yourself where you could improve. That shift, small as it may seem, is life-changing. Because focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring the world. It means prioritizing your growth within it. It means understanding that your journey is unique. Your pace is personal, and your path doesn't need validation from anyone else. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but it's hard not to compare. Of course it is. You're human. Comparison is natural, but staying stuck in it, that's a choice. You have to train your mind the same way you train your body. You don't go to the gym once and expect results. You show up consistently. You push through discomfort, you build strength over time. The same applies here. You have to catch yourself in those moments of comparison and redirect your focus every time. And at first, it won't be easy. Your mind will resist. It will pull you back into old patterns. But if you stay consistent, if you stay intentional, something incredible will happen. You will regain control. And control is everything. Because when you are in control of your focus, you are in control of your direction. And when you are in control of your direction, you are in control of your life. So stop giving that control away. Stop allowing other people's lives to dictate your emotions. Stop letting someone else's success make you feel small. Stop measuring your worth based on a comparison that was never fair to begin with. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not less. You are simply on your own path. And the moment you fully accept that, the moment you truly understand it, is the moment you become unstoppable. Because now your focus is clear. Now your energy is aligned. Now your growth is intentional. And from that place, from that mindset, from that level of clarity, you don't just improve, you transform. You become someone who doesn't need validation because you trust your process. You become someone who doesn't get distracted easily because you know your priorities. You become someone who doesn't compare constantly because you're too busy building something meaningful. And that's the real power of focusing on yourself. It's not just about ignoring others. It's about discovering who you are when the noise fades. It's about building a life that reflects your values, your goals, your purpose, not someone else's expectations. So I want to leave you with this thought. The world is always going to give you distractions. There will always be someone ahead of you, someone behind you, someone doing something different. That will never change. But what can change is where you choose to place your focus. So choose wisely. Choose growth over comparison. Choose discipline over distraction. Choose self-awareness over judgment. Choose your own path over someone else's timeline. Because at the end of the day, the only life you are responsible for is your own. And the only person you need to become better than is the person you used to be. Self-respect begins the moment you stop seeking approval from the wrong places. And most people don't even realize how often they are looking for it. It shows up in the smallest decisions, in the way you hesitate before speaking, in the way you adjust your opinions to fit the room, in the way you measure your worth based on how others react to you. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it's powerful enough to shape your entire life if you let it. Because when your sense of value depends on someone else's approval, you lose something essential. You lose your center. You lose your grounding. You begin to drift, not toward what is right for you, but toward what is acceptable to others. And the dangerous part is that it doesn't feel wrong at first. It feels safe. It feels like belonging. It feels like you're doing what you're supposed to do. But over time, that safety becomes a cage. You start filtering everything, your thoughts, your actions, your ambitions, through the lens of how it will be received. You ask yourself, will they like this? Will they approve? Will this make me look good? And without realizing it, you slowly disconnect from the one voice that actually matters, your own. And the longer you stay in that pattern, the harder it becomes to hear yourself clearly. Your instincts get quieter. Your confidence gets weaker. Your identity starts to blur. Because if you are constantly changing to fit expectations, who are you really becoming? That's the question most people avoid. Because facing it requires honesty. It requires admitting that maybe the life you are living isn't fully yours. Maybe the choices you've made were influenced more by approval than by purpose. Maybe the path you're on was shaped by fear of rejection rather than belief in yourself. And that realization can be uncomfortable. But it's also where everything begins to change. Because the moment you recognize that you've been seeking approval from the wrong places is the moment you have the opportunity to take your power back. And that power doesn't come from proving something to others. It comes from deciding that you no longer need to. You see, self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It's quiet, it's steady, and it's deeply rooted in how you treat yourself when nobody else is watching. It's in the boundaries you set. It's in the standards you uphold. It's in the decisions you make even when they are unpopular. And most importantly, it's in your willingness to walk away from anything that compromises your sense of worth. That's where self-respect begins to take shape. But let's be honest, walking away is not easy. It's not easy to step back from people who don't value you the way you deserve. It's not easy to say no when you've spent years saying yes just to be accepted. It's not easy to stand firm in your beliefs when the world around you is pushing you to conform. Because when you stop seeking approval, you also risk losing it. And that's what holds most people back. They're not afraid of failure. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of being misunderstood. They're afraid of being judged. So they stay in environments that don't serve them. They tolerate behaviors that diminish them, and they silence parts of themselves just to maintain a sense of belonging. But here's the truth: you cannot build self-respect in a place where you are constantly betraying yourself. You can't grow into your full potential while shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. You can't develop confidence while constantly questioning your own worth. At some point, you have to make a decision, a real decision, not the kind you say out loud and forget the next day, but the kind that shifts your behavior, that changes your standards, that redefines what you accept and what you reject. And that decision is this: you choose yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a truthful way. You choose to honor your values over popularity. You choose to respect your time over pleasing others. You choose to trust your instincts over external opinions. And once you make that shift, something incredible starts to happen. You begin to see things differently. You start noticing the patterns you once ignored. You recognize the situations where you were undervalued. You become aware of the moments where you compromised your integrity just to be accepted. And instead of feeling stuck in those patterns, you start breaking them. One decision at a time. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You stop chasing validation from those who only give it conditionally. You stop seeking permission to be who you already are. And in doing so, you create space for growth, space for clarity, space for confidence. Because when you remove the constant need for approval, you free up energy that was once wasted on trying to fit in. And that energy can now be redirected toward building something meaningful within yourself and in your life. You start investing in your own development, not because someone told you to, but because you genuinely want to improve. You start setting goals that align with your values, not with what looks impressive to others. You start building habits that strengthen your discipline, your mindset, your resilience. And slowly, consistently, you begin to transform, not into someone new, but into someone more aligned with who you truly are. And that alignment is powerful, because when you are aligned with yourself, you don't need constant reassurance. You don't need external validation to feel secure. You don't need approval to move forward. You trust yourself, and that trust becomes your foundation. It becomes the reason you keep going when things get difficult. It becomes the reason you stay consistent when results are slow. It becomes the reason you remain focused when distractions are everywhere, because now your motivation is internal, and internal motivation is unstoppable. But let's not pretend this journey is easy. There will be moments when you question your decision. There will be times when you feel isolated, when you feel like you're going against the current, when you wonder if it would be easier to just go back to seeking approval. And in those moments, you have to remind yourself why you started. You have to remember how it felt to constantly seek validation, to constantly adjust yourself, to constantly doubt your worth. You have to remember that self-respect is not about being liked by everyone. It's about being honest with yourself. And honesty sometimes comes with discomfort. It comes with difficult choices. It comes with letting go of things that are familiar but no longer beneficial. But every time you choose honesty over approval, you strengthen your self-respect. Every time you stand by your values, even when it's inconvenient, you reinforce your identity. Every time you prioritize your growth over someone else's opinion, you move closer to becoming the person you are meant to be. And that person is not defined by external validation. That person is defined by internal strength, by discipline, by clarity, by purpose. And once you reach that point, something shifts in the way you carry yourself. You walk differently. You speak differently. You think differently. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you are grounded in who you are. And people notice that. Not because you're seeking their attention, but because authenticity stands out in a world full of imitation. But here's the key. You don't do it for them. You do it for yourself. Because self-respect is not about how others see you. It's about how you see yourself. It's about the standard you set internally and the consistency with which you uphold it. It's about knowing your worth without needing it to be confirmed by anyone else. And that kind of confidence is rare. It's not built overnight. It's built through daily decisions, through small, consistent actions that reinforce your values, through moments where you choose discipline over comfort, through situations where you choose integrity over convenience. And over time, those choices compound. They shape your character. They define your identity. They build a version of you that is strong, resilient, and self-assured. A version of you that doesn't crumble under pressure. A version of you that doesn't get easily influenced. A version of you that stands firm regardless of external circumstances. And that is the power of self-respect. It's not something you declare. It's something you demonstrate in the way you live, in the way you think, in the way you treat yourself. So if you find yourself constantly seeking approval, constantly looking for validation, constantly adjusting yourself to fit expectations, take a moment to pause and ask yourself a simple question. Is this aligned with who I want to become? Because if the answer is no, then you already know what needs to change. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need approval. You need a decision to stop looking outward for something that can only be built within. A decision to stop compromising your values for temporary acceptance. A decision to stop measuring your worth based on someone else's opinion. And once you make that decision, you begin to reclaim something that was always yours. Your identity, your confidence, your direction. And from that place, from that foundation, from that level of self-awareness, you no longer feel the need to chase approval. Because you have something far more valuable. You have self-respect. and that changes everything.